Welcome back to Earth Station Trek, a show where we trek from the early days on NBC to the future on Paramount Plus and everywhere in between. I'm Charles Kelso, and it's my privilege to introduce the Earth Station Trek crew: Keith Johnson,
And notice I am not licking the walls.
Alan Seiler,
Chad lives to dog another day.
and Veronica Dashel.
Hi.
And as you might have guessed, we'll be talking tonight about Star Trek Lower Decks, episode 5 of season 5, Starbase 80. I think that's what you have to say.
yeah, I got to get that question mark in there.
Before that, we're going to be paying tribute to Tony Todd, who just recently
Yes.
passed away, who was a legend. And for Star Trek fans, but also for just moviegoers and people who love media in general. But before that, Keith, do we have some This Week in Trek this week?
Yeah, this is all old school Trek, so this is just the favorite hits. 10th of November, 1966. This is one that always comes up in Best of Trek. That was the airing of the Corbomite maneuver.
Okay.
Such a great episode. It set so many precedents. There's one of Kirk's first and best speeches. What's the purpose of this ship, Doctor? And goes on about that. There's the creepy little kid alien who I just loved. Was it Howard?
You say Clint Howard? Clint Howard, yeah.
Clint Howard, yeah. The man's voice over that little kid's body gets me to every day. And I was just on Facebook on another Star Trek group, and you wouldn't believe how many people, like in their 40s or 50s, still say that little mannequin, that doll that he put forth, still creeps them out to this day.
Oh, yeah.
Love that.
Yeah, it was the first production episode of Star Trek, and it's still, in my opinion, one of the best episodes of Star Trek ever made.
Absolutely. It also hit the thing because at the end, when they really thought that he was a hostile alien, remember that was the whole thing, the reason Kirk gave the speech, because McCoy is basically like, what do you mean you're going to try to rescue this guy? He just took us through hell. He was threatening to kill us.
Right.
And also, Kirk is the bluffer. The whole thing. Just a great episode.
Absolutely.
One of the best. 1 year later, exactly, on the same date, Metamorphosis.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Another good one.
One of Charles' favorite ones with the companion. I know, Charles, you also always mention, I think Ralph Sinesky directed that.
Yep.
And I watched it again recently, and I hadn't really noticed what you had pointed out. It looks gorgeous. It really is a good looking episode.
And the remastering worked really well on that one because the remastered video looks fantastic, but there wasn't a whole lot of opportunity to do weird CGI bobbing around. So you didn't have that detracting from it. So I think that it looks incredible in HD.
Yeah. And I also think very interesting about that episode of Star Trek, which is Star Trek has done so often, is Star Trek hits topics that it didn't know it was going to hit at the time. Because now there's whole discussions about transgender and what does a body and sex or whatever matter. Because what I love at the end of the episode is when Cochrane realized that the companion loved him, he's revolted. And he thinks that there's something wrong with Kirk and them because he literally says, what does the future hold no men with a sense of decency? And they're like, dude,
right.
The companion loves you. You love the companion. Who cares? Right. And now, of course, you can interpret that so many ways nowadays.
Sure. Absolutely. Now, they do pull their punches in the end because she becomes Eleanor Donahue.
Right.
Which makes it okay for him.
Exactly. Jumping forward one day, but then almost 10 years in history on this, I find this interesting. On the November 11th, 1977, that's when Paramount officially issued the statement that what they have been calling Star Trek Phase 2 was now going to be a movie called Star Trek: The Motion Picture. Because as I'm sure you know, Phase 2 for a long time, Gene Roddenberry had planned to do a series. They wanted to do a series. At one point that was scuttled, and then of course Star Wars.
Right.
and that took him to the theater.
Right.
And let's see, one more. I thought this was a good one because this is just another classic one. There's just so much you can say about it. On November 15th, 1966, is the completed filming of Arena. Okay. The first appearance of the Gorn in the Star Trek universe. Okay, anyway.
Right.
Another great, don't kill your enemy, don't do it to your enemy, what the enemy's going to do to you. Kirk had every right to kill the Gorn. He didn't. Another one of Deus Ex Machina with the Metrons. Another one of the classic, you humans are primitive, you're half savage, but come back in a couple thousand years. Maybe we can talk. All the great Star Trek tropes. And then I did this because this is just a fun one. Last one. On the 16th of November, 1966, this is what I read from the Star Trek site. Cameras rolled on the first day of filming for this episode. However, the guest star never showed up.
Oh.
You know what that one is?
Yes, the alternative factor.
Yeah, that's the kill with John Barrymore of the famous Barrymore family didn't show up. He ended up getting taken to SAG. He lost because Gene Roddenberry and all the company people were pissed. They brought in Robert Brown, who literally just walked in and had to film it. That episode is always on the list of kind of like worst Star Trek, but it's not on the list in the same way that say, and the children shall lead as worst Star Trek. It's actually kind of fun. It's got a good premise with the alternate reality universe and stuff. And honestly, if you look at the behind the scenes, it's amazing that thing came off as well as it did.
Right.
Truth be told, I don't hate it. It's a fun watch.
Yeah, it's not the best way to go out on season 1 though.
Absolutely. But what of Lazarus? And that's it for this week in Star Trek history.
Awesome. Well, I see we already have some comments, so we do want to make some comments going into the next segment.
Oh, absolutely. So Matt Sweatman, who chimed in like at least 5 minutes before we even went live, says, "Hello, guys. R.I.P. Tony Todd." Absolutely.
Amen.
That's going to be our first topic of the night. And he also says that mannequin was in the closing credits of almost every first season episode. Yeah, I know.
Absolutely.
John Michael Fink says, "God bless and R.I.P. to Tony Todd." Tiger Blade 2002 says, "Good to see you all. Hey, R.I.P. Tony Todd."
Welcome back, Ryan.
And then Matt wraps it up by saying, "The only true Gorn episode."
That's right. That's right, Matt.
Come on, Matt. Don't encourage him.
One thing Matt said, I want to follow up on real quick. Matt said that Baylock, I think that was the mannequin thing that showed up at the end of every first season episode. When I was a kid, he creeped me out. And the other thing that actually scared me was when Captain Pike with the Telosians was choking the Telosian and it turned into that gorilla-like creature. And I was 7 years old. That would also creep me out. Now it's kind of funny.
All right. Well, for our topic tonight, Keith, you suggested this topic. So do you want to take it away?
Yeah, I was just, first off, I was surprised. I had not realized that Tony Todd had been sick. And then I looked at some pictures of him from the last year or so. And you can tell he had that thin face that people have who may be on the way out. My first exposure to Tony Todd was not Candyman. My first exposure to Tony Todd was, I think, The Night of the Living Dead that he had done. And he was really good in that. And I thought he was just a good presence. And then I saw him in some other things. And what I always notice about him is he's one of those actors. One, he was 6'5" or something. He has that deep voice. He also has one of those faces where he gets typecast a certain way. He has kind of a natural frown. The way his teeth are set, he just looks menacing. And I remember when I first really paid attention to him as just maybe a character actor was, of course, Star Trek. I got to go there. And when he showed up as Worf's brother, the way he literally stalks onto the Enterprise. And when he talks to Riker, and Riker's like basically, "Hey, welcome aboard." He looks and goes, "I relieve you." And even when they're walking, there's just a way he's walking with his. He reminds me of the guys in kung fu movies that have the exaggerated way of walking with their hands like they're tough. And he is just so good playing Kurn, especially when Riker says, "Can I make a suggestion?" And then later on, matter of fact, he goes, "Yeah, I have to stop myself from killing Commander Riker." And then fast forward, Jake Sisko, adult, in an episode that still makes me cry. Yep. So just a great actor. He is one of those people like Walter Koenig and others who only appeared a handful of times on a series and left a mark. Yeah. Or two series, I should say.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's really saying something about, I guess, the way they perceive sort of the presence he brings, that they cast him as both Worf's brother and Sisko's son, because those are two characters you think of that are very, they just carry themselves on screen. You know what I mean? You don't want some, mealy mouthed guy trying to play the brother or the son of one of those characters. I mean, it's really says something about the way they viewed him, and the fact that those characters are so different from one another really speaks to his ability as an actor.
Yeah.
A couple of things. First of all, the casting of him as Jake Sisko is so interesting to me because he is so well known for his horror movie roles.
Right.
Yeah.
Night of the Living Dead, The Crow, Wishmaster, Hatchet, Frankenstein, Hellfest. I mean, he did all these things where, I mean, not saying that he was typecast as a horror movie actor, but he certainly made bank doing that. And so to put him in a role like Jake was such an interesting choice, and he just pulled it off so well. But Keith, you said something that was exactly a point that I was going to make using the same word, stalk. There's a certain art to playing a Klingon.
Yeah.
And there's like if you understand it, there's a different way that you stand. There's a different way that you speak. And a different way that you look at people. And not everybody who's ever appeared as a Klingon does it. Some of them are just people wearing makeup, right?
Yeah.
But there are a few people who really get what it is to be a Klingon. And they're not just acting a role, they're being a Klingon. And I feel like Tony he was incredible. He would just brought Kurn to life in a way where just the way he would enunciate a word sounds menacing. And when I was thinking about this afternoon, I was like, what he does when he's coming into a scene or when he's walking up to a person, he's stalking it. He's stalking that scene. He's stalking that person he's coming up to. And he does it because he's in that mindset of a hunter, of a warrior. And he got Klingon more than maybe anybody else, except maybe for Michael Dorn and
JG.
Yes, JG Hertzler. But I was trying to get Gowron.
Robert
O'Reilly. Yes. Those four people understood Klingons more than anybody. And luckily they were given prominent, meaty roles. And
that's probably why they were given those prominent meaty Klingon roles.
Yeah.
Right. So how do you audition a Klingon actor?
Yeah.
You know, do you have them just come in and stalk the room? You know, because I'm sure that's what Tony did. But I loved the way Tony spoke as Kurn, the way he would say a line. He's not just reading a script. He is living that line. And oh my God, he was amazing.
Yeah, he really was. Yeah, and I agree, because even when and I hope I'm not spoiling anything for Elaine, because Elaine, I can't remember what you have and have not watched with TNG or DS9.
They're in season 4.
Okay, so they've gotten Kurn's introduction then, the first time. Yes. Okay, yeah, but like you said, Alan, you're right. It's there's a way he stands. There's an ease to it, and you don't feel like he's overacting. It's like the ease with Jeffrey Combs would play Wayoon, or frankly the way Avery Brooks would play Sisko once they let him shave his head and get the beard back. Yeah, he was just so good with it. Even when Riker would talk to him, he had that look. I'm sure we've all had somebody on your job, but you're talking to them, and they kind of seem like they're not really paying attention. They're looking through you and past you. That's the way he was when Riker was trying to give him a little, hey, this is how you handle the star. You can hear you could tell he didn't want to hear it, and then you realize he was like, I'm going to kill him. I'm going to kill him. If he doesn't shut up, I'm going to shank him. And he has to realize, I can't do it. I'm on the wrong ship.
The other night, we always play DS9 at bedtime, and the episode came up and it just coincidental. It was the same day that he had passed, but where Kurn came aboard DS9.
Oh, wow.
And that's so cool. His Star Trek performance that I tend to forget about because it's not, I don't know. I just do. And there's a scene in that where he becomes a member of the Bajoran militia and he puts on that Bajoran outfit. And there were big muscular guys who'd worn that outfit before, but he just looked so uncomfortable and awkward in it. And I don't know how much that was his performance. It just looks like this is a bad idea. This is not going to be a good fit.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And again, I don't want to spoil anything for Elaine, but Elaine, I'm not going to spoil it. But without going too deep into it, let's just say his treatment on DS9 is one of the worst things I've ever seen. Ultimately, and I'll just leave it there.
Right.
Yeah, and then Jake Sisko. I mean, to your point, Alan, I wonder how anybody even thought about that.
Yeah.
How that worked out. You know, people always joke about that episode of TNG when Q aged everybody. And there's that real big muscular dude who was supposed to be old Wesley Crusher. And then, and then they aged Patrick Stewart. It turns out Patrick Stewart was buff up until his 80s, so that didn't work out. So I wonder who looked at Cirroc Lofton, who actually turned out to be a pretty good sized, handsome guy. But I wonder who looked at Cirroc Lofton at the time and said, Tony Todd. And again, as you say, who thought Tony Todd to be tender? And because at the end of the day, he's still a kid inside, even though he's an adult.
Right.
I read something a year or so ago about that episode, and I don't remember if it was a mother or grandmother. I think it was grandmother. Tony's grandmother had just died when he took that role playing Jake, who had just lost his father. And that's why he brings so much of that raw emotion to that part, because that's what he's experiencing at the time that they're filming it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
And it's pretty remarkable the way he plays future Jake Sisko over the course of so many years.
Right.
Which oftentimes that'll happen on Star Trek, but it'll happen to Patrick Stewart's character or Colm Meaney's character or someone like that, who's one of the main stars of the show, not a guest star. And the fact that he was the star of that episode,
Right?
But he got to play this incredible arc over, I don't know, 40 years or whatever it was of Jake's life, to the point that I forget like how old he was when that was made, because he's only like Tony Todd's age, like at the very beginning. But he plays it so well, and those scenes between him and Ben are just incredible. And I mean, that episode is remembered and lauded for a reason, because it's just a phenomenal piece of television. It's sort of one of those episodes that really transcends the show it's on, and it just works incredibly well as just a wonderful episode of television.
Yeah.
Gosh, Charles, now that you say that, he couldn't have been more than 37, 38.
Right.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking.
That's crazy.
Yeah, because he was only 67 when he died. Yeah.
Wow.
I know, right?
He was younger than I am now.
Isn't that something else?
That's crazy.
Are you 68?
No, when he did the episode.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right. I got a whole stack of comments.
Awesome.
So this first one, y'all have to help me interpret this a little bit.
Yeah, I couldn't figure it out.
Is it true that Gene Roddenberry was about to bring back, restart Star Trek? I'm not sure. Are we talking about Star Trek 2?
Probably phase 2.
Phase 2.
That's what I'm wondering. That's what I meant to say. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
In fact, some of the scripts that ended up in the first 2 seasons of Next Gen were scripts that had been either written or proposed for phase 2. And they were just like sitting there, and they were holdovers basically.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
To give you an idea for the direction they were on, they were not the greatest episodes of Next Gen when they produced.
There you go.
Yeah.
Right. Matt says, I'll never forget Tony's first scene in Trek. He's on the transporter pad, shadowed in darkness, the viewer not knowing what to expect. Almost scary. Great first impression.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And he also says, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. He also says that he and Elaine will be watching Redemption Part 1 later tonight. Boy, is that a good one.
Yes. Good acting around.
Wayne says Tony Todd was fierce as Worf's brother.
Absolutely.
Elaine sends a big paragraph that says, I was aware of him as Candyman, but I never saw those movies. I'm sure I've seen him in some of his one-off guest appearances on random shows back in the 90s. But the first thing I really saw him in was Next Gen as Kurn in the last year. I was very impressed with his portrayal. Yep. Us too.
Yeah.
And then Wayne says hesitant.
Was it true that Gene Roddenberry was hesitant?
Was hesitant to bring.
To bring
that
back
changed the whole complexity of that sentence.
Interesting.
I understand what Wayne's saying. I just read about this last week. He was kind of open to bringing back Star Trek, but he was sick of Star Trek by the third season because the network had promised him a good slot, and they moved him to the graveyard slot, which was Friday nights. Gene Roddenberry was pretty much checked out of season 3. Fred Freiberger was running the show. Gene didn't show up a lot. He was so pissed at how NBC had treated him. And so he was, Wayne, a little hesitant because also, and I know Charles remembers this, Gene Roddenberry was busy off trying to get other series produced, like, what's the one with the android? I should know, the Quester tapes.
Yeah.
The Quester tapes, and was it Genesis 2 and Planet Earth? And he kept writing, and then the scripts that he wrote that became the series Andromeda and the series Earth Final Conflict. So he was afraid he was going to become a one-trick pony with Star Trek. And he didn't think the network was going to treat him right. So he was not initially eager to go back to Star Trek until years later, and the syndication and the conventions. Then he's like, okay, maybe we can give this thing a try again.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Alan, you said one other thing I thought was really interesting. You said about how people know how to play Klingons. And there's sometimes the silliest, smallest scenes tell you how good someone is. Michael Dorn's acting was elevated with Tony Todd. And there was a scene in TNG when Worf has found out he's his brother. And it's a very small scene. And Worf says, "Your deception offends me, brother." And Kurn simply goes, "It should." And I'm like, yeah, that's a Klingon for you. Because he's 1 second away from stabbing him for doing that. It's just a small role, but they get what Klingons are. Because for a Klingon, you punked me, that's not cool at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's impressive for a guest star to be able to come on and go toe to toe with Worf. And now I'm not saying just in a fight, because then on TNG the guest star would always beat up Worf. But as far as just playing the scenes together and being able to bring, I mean, the performance to it, where you really feel like this is his estranged brother, but also a guy that, I mean, really Worf's fortunate that Kurn honors the Klingon tradition of the older brother being in charge, because you could see him holding himself back. Where I mean, if it came down to it, I feel like Kurn could take Worf, I mean,
easy. I mean, everybody else can.
On DS9, Worf would win, but on TNG, 100%.
Exactly right.
That old lady beat him up one time.
Yeah. Something else I was thinking about, a list. Boris Karloff, Vincent Price, Robert England, Freddie.
They all played good Klingons? Is that what you're saying?
Jeffrey Combs, Andrew Robinson, and Tony Todd. What they all have in common is they have all played some of the scariest characters in history, TV and film. And every single one of those actors, I have read people say they were the nicest and are the nicest people you will ever meet. Boris Karloff, nicest guy. His daughter said he was a sweetheart. Vincent Price, people said he was so nice. He's so cultured. I've listened to many interviews with Andrew Robinson and Jeffrey Combs, such cool people. And Tony Todd, Virginia Madsen, who was tearing up on Instagram after Tony died. She said he was just the nicest guy. And Tony Todd, I read an interview, he said, well, I always get cast in a certain role. I guess people just think I'm a certain way, but I'm really just a softie inside. And he was just a big kid in his own mind. Yeah. And I think you have to have that. I think you actually have to, this is weird. I think you actually have to have a certain soft side, almost a love of humanity to play somebody who hates people.
But that voice didn't hurt. Because he had a voice, man.
Yes, he did. Oh man. And going back to
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say that about his voice. Going back to The Visitor, him and Avery Brooks in scenes together. Holy Moses.
Yeah.
That's some voice that'll just make you melt.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, sad this week. He was young to have passed, And now I go see 80-year-olds in concert all the time, so maybe my view is skewed. But I would have loved to see Tony Todd continue. I'd love to have seen him come back on some of the new Star Trek shows. And I mean, he's still a phenomenal actor, and I mean, just for as few episodes as he was in, as far as Star Trek goes, cast a long shadow.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. He had a huge impact on that show.
Absolutely. And his Candyman, that series, that movie still resonates to this day. It's been remade. It is literally one of the most famous horror characters in film history. It was saying something, not just a horror movie. And he's mentioned up there with some of the greats like Freddy and Jason and all the others, because people talk about Candyman. So what a great job.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, one last comment. Matt says, largely thanks to Tony, I feel that Candyman might be better than the typical horror series. It feels like we need to check them out.
It's a good one. The first one is a good one. I haven't seen the remake, but I don't know about I know the first one.
Yeah, I've not seen the remake either, and I doubt I would be interested without Tony in it.
Yeah.
No, me either. We've been watching the Reanimator movies lately, and Candyman was up on our list, so I think it's going to be a good time to revisit Candyman. And Bronx, you've never seen it, have you?
Mm-mm.
No, so it'll be fun.
I don't watch horror for the most part, but Chuck's been slowly trying to pull me in, and I've been begrudgingly watching it because of Star Trek actors.
Thanks to Star Trek actors.
that Chuck begrudgingly drugged me into.
All right. So do we want to take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll be talking about Star Trek Lower Decks Starbase 80? You're right there.
Hang on, I got to get to the right screen. All right, here we go.
Hi, I'm Gina Shock from the Go-Go's, fabulous drummer of the Go-Go's.
Hi, this is Tony Levin of King Crimson.
Hi, this is David Fishoff of the Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp.
Hi, this is Richard Evans. I am the author of Listening to the Music the Machines Make.
Hi, this is Teresa Kariakis, punk rock photographer.
Hi, I'm Tom Beaujour, author of Nothing But a Good Time, and you are listening to Modern Musicology.
Modern Musicology.
Modern Musicology.
You're listening to Modern Musicology, so, pay attention. You might learn something.
Beep-doop, beep-doop, spoilers. Beep-doop, beep-doop, spoilers. Beep-doop, beep-doop.
I think I got it. And that's spoilers for Star Trek Lower Decks Starbase 80? Because it has
You get better every time you say it.
That's the way it's written.
Yeah,
It
you
is.
can't just say Starbase 80.
Yeah.
Nope.
No.
Oh, Keith, I thought you were doing a bit. I thought you were going to do some kind of Star Trek Starbase 80 gag.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Come in, look in the wall or something.
Yeah, I should have been drooling.
Right.
So yeah, we're halfway through season 5 now. And we finally got to spend some time on Starbase 80, which they've been mentioning forever on the show.
That's
what
right.
do you think?
It was a little odd, but I liked the quirk of, we're forgotten, so everything's really old and nothing works, and we're gonna have to trick these people into fixing things, and that was kind of cool.
Okay. What about one of you guys?
I thought it was fun. I agree with Veronica, it was a little odd. It almost felt like a season 1 Lower Decks, where they were just a little bit more on the pure humor and just a little bit more on almost taking us a little bit out of the Star Trek world as they parody it and they kind of poke fun, lovingly. Because my first thought was, there's no way there's a Starbase that's like that. It's just not. Right. It's not going to happen in Starbase Federation. But it was still fun. Still fun. I enjoyed that.
You want to go ahead?
I can. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I thought the episode was entertaining. I'm like you. I have a hard time believing that in the Federation in the Starfleet there's a Starbase that is at this ridiculous level of disrepair. Right? Yeah. That they send people there as a punishment, and it's been going on for years. Right. So I was a little bit annoyed by it this morning, and I left, and I had to stop by Kroger on the way. And the Kroger on the way to work is this terrible Kroger that I hate going to because they never have what I need. The staff is incompetent. I have a terrible time there. So I stopped there this morning because I had to stop there. And I get there, and all the employees are standing out front, scratching their heads because whoever opens the door wasn't there. And I'm just like, of course. So it just seemed very appropriate to have just finished watching Starbase 80 and then go to the Starbase 80 of Kroger.
That's great.
For anyone not in the area that's watching, Kroger is a grocery store.
True. That's true. That's true.
It's not nationwide. All right. This is not my favorite.
Right. I can see that.
And I mean, not my favorite of the season. This might not be my favorite of the 5 years so far.
Wow.
I just didn't really. I mean, it was, you know, they often exaggerate a point to make a point or to emphasize a point or to get a joke, and I just felt like this was so far beyond what they should have done, because I mean, there is absolutely no way that this place would exist in the Federation. And yes, that's part of the joke, but it's just, it was so far gone that it just didn't have any believability to me. And I feel like no matter what Lower Decks does, they still ground it in at least having a toe over the line of believability. And I don't think this had that at all. I just couldn't buy into it at all. There were moments that were fun, you know, and maybe I would have liked it more if Talin had been in it. I don't know. But, you know, it just didn't seem, this seemed more like making fun of Star Trek than skewering Star Trek in a loving and you know, a fully acknowledged way.
Yeah, I will agree. The corn dog salesman just didn't work.
Yes.
No,
and
not at all.
Literal bats flying around the station just didn't work.
No.
So yeah,
Just
that was
silly.
a little far.
Yeah, I mean, you say that, but then there was a vole problem on DS9
Yeah.
where they had big Cardassian rats they were chasing around.
But I always attributed that because that was a Cardassian station.
True.
You know,
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wasn't a built
I'd have an easier time buying the situation on the Starbase if it had been cut off from the Federation for X amount of years and had just reappeared, you know?
And that would have been an interesting story. Yeah. I mean, kind of like Equinox, you know, where you are so cut off from home base that you have zero contact. And how does your situation evolve from that point?
Right.
I mean, I don't think they still would have evolved with bats flying around, but you know, whatever.
Yeah, because in real life they would have sent a Cisco before DS9 or hell a Jellicoe or somebody, and that place would have cleaned up real fast. I also don't know about that. Yeah, I also don't get that weird peace treaty where they ceded half the station to the Akamarians for some reason. Yeah, the Gatherers.
Yeah, that wasn't. I mean, they didn't explain it. I did like the lady who was showing them around, and I think she's a comedian and like a
that was Nicole Byers. Yeah, she's amazing. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. She was good.
Yeah, she's great. I love her.
Yeah, and I kind of like the doctor with who was half parasite, like Geordi turns into. And very.
I did love that
British.
callback.
Yeah,
because that's one of my favorite Geordi episodes.
Right. Yeah, which Matt and Elaine just watched recently too.
I missed that one.
Yeah.
Okay. Frankie, chime in.
I had something at the top.
You're done now?
Yes. I don't know what else to say. The ending was very abrupt of the way that they solved the problem.
True.
Let's knock him out, and obviously the parasite's just gonna crawl out and we're gonna throw a bucket over it.
I did like that the parasite was a lower decker amongst his people. You know, he was a junior member of that species, and which kind of harkens back to Trelane as well.
Yeah, true.
And a phasic life form, which we've heard about that before.
Yeah, and I don't even mind that there was like older style corridors and things like that. But there seems like they got there and they said that their transporters aren't for organic materials, so we have to use the rub down gel, which is a joke to get the rub down gel. But I thought like, well, Cerritos' transporter should work fine. You can just beam in the way you would if there wasn't a transporter there. You know,
right.
That's why I felt almost like a first season episode where they didn't know what they were doing almost. Well, not know, you know, it felt more like that. Yeah, because the rub down gel didn't make sense, and it was a weird.
It never made sense.
Thing. No, why would you call back to Enterprise for that? That was kind of strange.
Yeah, well, because they wanted it would be funny.
Yes,
weren't they wearing Enterprise uniforms?
Yeah, they had like the blue tank tops. Oh, and the people on the ship also,
and
had
the station had.
Yeah, which doesn't make a lot of sense. Like they don't have replicators. I mean, it seems like
they had in that shop of the dead crewmen. They had newer uniforms than the Enterprise. What the crew was wearing.
The Enterprise?
Yeah, because they were wearing Enterprise uniforms, weren't they? Wasn't that Enterprise uniforms
from Enterprise?
Yes.
Okay, I thought you said they had newer uniforms than the Enterprise crew.
The Enterprise crew in that little shop. that like Tindy found a uniform and she was like, "Oh, how did you replicate this?" They're like, "It's from a dead guy."
Oh, I got you. Yeah, the dead guy uniform.
Yes.
Yeah.
So obviously there's been newer crew there, and
Or just they have the. I don't know. I mean, it seems like if you can get a uniform to Starbase 80, you can get a replicator there.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Once you have a replicator, you can make more replicators.
Exactly. What's a replicator good for? Making more replicators.
Or even if they were in a region of space that interfered with the technology in such a way that they had to be like deliberately retro, like on Battlestar Galactica when they were deliberately retro because of the Cylons, something like I don't know. I'm like you guys. I didn't really buy their situation. I think the Starbase from the exterior looks great. It's a good design for a Starbase.
Yeah.
And I don't even mind there being the old style corridors and equipment because you may have older things in the Federation that are good. I mean, this stuff should be useful for more than 7 years. They treat the shelf life of a starship like it's 7 years, then you need a new one. But presumably this stuff should be able to be in operation for a long time.
Yeah,
right.
But I mean, playing devil's advocate, maybe this is just a region of space that is just so low on the priority list, and Starfleet has other priorities that they've just allowed this place to fall into disrepair.
Yeah, it still doesn't seem realistic though. I mean,
not
decommission the thing if you're not going to upkeep.
You said not even the arcade?
Oh gosh. Yeah.
On Golden Girls, because that's one of my favorite shows ever, Sophia, who's the older woman, was in a nursing home called Shady Pines, and there was a running joke about how horrible Shady Pines was. And when they finally had an episode where they went to visit Shady Pines, it was really nice. I was really hoping that was going to be the joke here. Like Starbase 80 is the most horrible place in the galaxy, and they get there and they're like, well, this isn't that bad. This is kind of nice, actually.
Right.
Yeah, I thought so too.
All right, so comments. Matt says this was his favorite episode of the season. Sorry.
Wow.
That's
Don't
cool.
apologize.
Yeah.
I know, right? Yeah. Stand up for your beliefs.
That's
man.
the fun of it.
Do tell
Exactly.
Matt. Tell us about what you loved about it.
Right. Elaine says, I love the Enterprise nods, the decon shower, the uniforms.
Okay.
And she also says that Boimler has chest hair now. That's not new. He has had that from the beginning.
But the beard and the mustache.
The beard and the mustache, yes.
he has a little
I
goatee
got
going
that
out
one.
too.
Wayne says, my high school in Chicago used to be a Kroger warehouse. Simeon, we're going back to that. Simeon Career Academy in Chicago.
Interesting.
Fascinating.
Was it any good?
Matt says, if Starfleet was real, it would probably be a whole lot more like Starbase 80 than what we normally see.
I hope
That's a
not.
good point. Wayne says, sorry, definitely an Aspie moment.
Okay.
And
Elaine,
Elaine that's one of my favorite quotes. Shady Pines, Ma. I'll explain later.
I get it.
So did anybody get, and maybe I'm off base on this, did anybody get backdoor pilot vibes off this episode?
Ooh. Yeah, I can see that.
Now that you mention it, because what was her name? Knox. She did seem almost, she stood out somehow. Yeah. But I never thought about that.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, who are you talking to?
You.
Because they introduced Starbase 80 in pretty great detail. You have this real prominent main character who at the end is sort of giving a speech about how great Starbase 80 is, and it's a place for the underdogs, and that's why it's awesome. And they fixed it up some so it can continue. And it seems like the kind of place that could be Mike McMahon's version of Deep Space Nine, where you've got the aliens on the station and you got a rundown station, rather like DS9 was, but in a more lower decks way, where they're the underdogs of Starfleet in a different way. That seemed like that could be a direction that they take. Now, I could be off base. It could be they thought it'd be a funny episode,
off base.
I could be off the Starbase. But I mean, I wouldn't. It wouldn't shock me to see and that character leading, a new Starbase 80 show coming soon to Paramount Plus.
I see what you mean. So a backdoor pilot kind of thing. Yeah. I can see that.
They absolutely had characters kind of stood out, like the Doctor, half with the half whatever phase, and then I guess what was it Janikowski or whatever was actually the engineer, and
Right.
he was very different. And yeah, and Knox, she really, something about her stood out. I hadn't thought about that, but she really stood out. Just how she was very well written for one episode character.
It's like sometimes in Doctor Who, you'll get a character who you think, are they setting her up to be a companion? Because she'll just be extra special in the episode, the way the episode treats her. And I feel like this character was that way. I did also like that she was an Elorian, but she's only in her 30s.
That was
a young
great.
Elorian is just a regular person.
And I will say, as I may not have liked the premise of this episode, but I really did love the sort of view of what we get this week of Mariner and her own self-realization of how much she has changed since the beginning of the show. I thought that was really well done, and that was my favorite part of the episode.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
and I like that they've taken that direction with Mariner. You know, I would hate it if she was still season 1 Mariner at this point.
Oh
Yeah.
God.
5 years of it. You know,
Yeah.
and I've said this before, but the great thing about Lower Decks is the characters and the way they let them evolve in ways that often I find surprising, because it sort of catches me off guard, because you don't expect it from a show like this. Whereas like a serialized drama, you would expect more like intense character growth and things like that. But a silly comedy where they're making Star Trek jokes, it's delightful to see these characters grow over the course of the season.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a question about this episode.
Okay.
And it actually goes back to the first episode this season, where they're all in the alternate universe, the very, very closely associated mirror universe. And in that one, we learn that Captain Freeman is at Starbase 80. They didn't really say anything more about it than that. But in this one, she says, in that alternate universe, my counterpart was running this place. I didn't get that at all. I watched that episode at least 3 times, and I didn't pick up on them saying anything about her being like the station commander or anything like that. I just figured she was like imprisoned or something.
Yeah, I didn't pick that up on that either, but I could see where Captain Freeman would see it that way.
Okay.
Based on the same information, that she would assume that she must be in command of Starbase 80.
Oh, well, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm glad you said that, though, because I kept thinking I missed something with that.
Yeah.
Well, you're right. I'm helping the writers out when I say that. You know, because that was not in the script.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And I wonder if that was a line that got cut or something. I don't know.
But then she also made the assumption that her alter ego must have failed at this same task, and therefore she must succeed.
Yeah,
so
that's
that
true.
could just be Captain Freeman being Captain Freeman.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Veronica, you were going to say something.
I got that she was in charge of
Did
of
you?
the ship.
Okay.
From the first
Starbase.
episode?
Yeah.
Starbase 80?
Oh.
Really? Interesting. Okay.
Interesting.
That was just because I was assuming she was a captain, so at some point on that ship. So obviously she's in charge of something there. So
Okay.
Well, fair
All
enough.
right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. They wrote to that.
And I want to put it out to the folks in the chat while we talk about whatever the next thing is. But would the people in the chat like to see a Starbase 80 TV show? And go ahead, Keith. I'm sorry.
Oh no! Now that you mention it, I would be, and it's so funny because it's funny how you think something, but you don't go all the way like you did. I wrote down in my notes. They're incredibly well sketched out guest characters for one episode, and then I never thought, I wonder if this could be a backdoor pilot, but they just stood out very slightly. It's funny you said that, but it was funny when you were talking about the El-Arian. Because it's very interesting, even though she's only 30 and Mariner says basically she doesn't have, I don't know, whatever, we still don't know exactly what powers they have. What I found very interesting, even though she's 30, she does reflect her racial characteristics. Her fighting, for example, she was not really punching a lot. She just dodged Mariner. She comes off, because the whole thing about El-Arians, they're cool. They don't stress really quickly. They observe. And she was having a whole conversation, and Mariner was doing her best to try to fight, and she was just dodging and just and she never lost her temper. I thought that was really cool. That's what they tend to be as a race.
Yeah, good point. All right, here's some comments. Matt says, "Will we see fully developed the Akamarians like DS9 developed Bajorans, Cardassians, Klingons, and Ferengi?"
I think that'd be fun.
I think on this new spinoff that we're proposing, that could happen.
Yeah.
He also says, I think we're moving towards Mariner accepting that she has the talent for command track. Yeah, I totally agree.
She needs
Totally
to be.
agree.
She's been in Starfleet too long to be still at that level.
Right.
Right. And I think that we even talked about that when we were reviewing the final two-parter of last year. You know, she had this big self-realization in those episodes. And I feel like that's where we're really heading from that point on.
Right.
And then Elaine says, I wouldn't say no to a Starbase 80 show.
Okay.
Well, Elaine, we are here to provide what our audience requires and demands.
Yeah. But if they went that direction, I would want them to keep the repairs that the Cerritos made. So it's not quite so comically an inept station.
Yes.
But I think it would be interesting to see a stories about a station that is not high on the Starfleet's priority list when they're dealing with things like Dominion War and Borg level threats. So they make do with older equipment. I think that'd be good. Not to the level that they're using decon rub downs and playing slot machines because they don't have any other entertainment. You know what I mean? They went a little bit far with that stuff. But even integrating the older style, like TOS style corridors and things, I think is fine, because if it's not high on the priority list to replace these corridors with modern panels, leave them be. You know,
absolutely.
If they were holding the air in, great.
Exactly.
I
did like. Go ahead.
I'm struggling to see where there would be any story there, because like with Deep Space Nine, there was like people coming onto the station and things happening around them. Starbase 80, it seems like it's isolated.
Potentially, but I mean, they're still in space and things could happen. You can say the same thing about, I don't see the story potential of following a bunch of ensigns around who all they do is clean the chairs and the holodeck, take waste out of the holodeck. You know what I mean? But they find stories for them. It'd be intriguing to watch and see. You know, maybe this is where like the less important species go dock and things like that. I don't know. I'm just spitballing. I'm not in charge.
And you have the dichotomy of the Starfleet crew versus the Akamarian community that can provide some drama there.
That could be cool. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Rather like the Bajorans did on DS9.
Yeah.
Right. Or rather like some of what we saw on Babylon 5.
Yeah. There you go. Exactly.
Ooh.
Be the new Drazi.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. They're great.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, considering it started off, we talked about how we didn't like this episode as much, and then pitched it as a spinoff by the end.
I do think one of the interesting things what she said is when Knox, she completely changed the perception when she said it's not a place of punishment, it's a place where they're sent for a second chance. That changed everything in terms of perception of what they're trying to say. Because I thought it was a punishment where, you know, like that doofus in Star Trek: The Search for Spock. You remember the guy who was up on the station? Mr. Adventure, yeah. And he was, and you could tell he was wondering why he's there. And the more he talked, the more you realize why he was like in his 20s and already in that, you know, dead end job. That's what I thought Starbase 80 was. But then she said, no, it's where you get sent for a second chance. So that does change everything when they say something like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, what do we think about the inclusion of the beluga whales? They actually got some screen time in this one. They don't get a whole lot.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I'm happy that they're included more in this episode, but that they're walking around, you know, the deck and getting punched and stuff, and that hurt my soul to see him locked. I don't know.
I did like we found out they go on away missions.
Yes,
to like water planets and things.
Yes, that's what I want to see. I don't want to see this. I want to see them actually.
I want to see their water planet adventure.
I want to see them actually being crew members, seeing them do their jobs. That's what I want to see.
Yeah. We don't usually just get them for comedy. On lower decks. Now, Prodigy, they made use of that whale doing some Starfleet stuff. But they did talk about that the navigation was going out. They had to shut down the ship because you know the beluga whales are key to the navigation. Yep. And I did like the point where they said that, well, the next Starbase, we can go at full impulse for 400 years to get there. That's something that gets glossed over sometimes on Star Trek, where if you ain't got warp, you ain't going no place, you know?
Right.
That's right. Oh, shoot, I was going to say something else about that. Oh, never mind.
That's something I hadn't even thought about. For all that most life in the universe that would be like us it would probably develop in water. And
Mhm.
there's always this conversation about why haven't we heard from intelligent life, and there's a whole bunch of reasons why. But one of the reasons I always think that people forget is there's no guarantee that intelligent life would leave water and go on land. They don't have to just because we did. So to the point you're making, there would be whole tons of worlds where they would probably have intelligent species in the water where they could go visit. We just don't see them much.
Yeah.
And looking around, they made the right choice. They're just happily swimming around.
Yeah.
Like the Zindi.
There you go.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That was my favorite part about the Zindi storyline was they were big, intelligent whales.
Yeah, and it was an interesting thing because they were in many ways more advanced than the others. And I think they were ridiculously brilliant in math and stuff. They just never developed metal because how could they? Or electricity and stuff. But they were brilliant species. So that part was kind of cool. It also, with the whole anaphasic life form, somehow it felt a little rushed. It was like they were doing. And Charles, back to your point about a backdoor pilot, because somehow when they realized it was an anaphasic life form, and then he basically puked it up. It felt kind of quick. It felt like a really rushed resolution to me. And I thought it was interesting. And then I had to chuckle when the doctor put a pail over it.
Yeah.
Like, that'll take care of that energy life form.
Mariner did the first thing in one of the very first episodes when that thing came on the hallway and she was like, stuffed it in a container and like wrestling with it. You wouldn't think it would be that easy. It can go through solid objects.
Right.
It will electrocute you. But you guys talking about the Zindi Aquatics, and there's a missed beluga whale adventure away mission.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Dealing with Zindi Aquatics.
Yes.
A missed opportunity.
I'm going to propose another spinoff, and I just want to see Star Trek Cetacean Ops.
Yes.
Like that.
I would watch a whole show based about whales. Come on.
Okay.
Whales in space.
Given that the whales and cetacean ops are kind of randy and seem like always want to party and have sex, and the aquatics from the Zindi are really serious, that would be very interesting.
And now the whale probe from Star Trek 4 is in the opening credits of every episode.
Yes.
It's all coming together.
It is, man. I'm telling you, it's going somewhere.
Right.
Oh, that's actually not a bad idea. Aquatic species in Star Trek. I mean, there could be a league of aquatic species in the Federation. Seriously. I mean, you could actually do something like that.
Yeah. There was, I don't remember the name, but there was one in the animated series. Where Spock and Kirk had to grow gills and
Amber or something.
And become sea monkeys. Ambergris?
Yeah, ambergris.
I think I'm pronouncing it right because it ends with an S, but I believe it's ambergris. But don't quote me on that.
Yeah, it is. Elaine says whales in space reminds me of pigs in space.
Tellarites?
Come on. I don't have that many original ideas. All my inspiration comes from somewhere else.
Right. Yeah, so now we've only got 5 episodes left of the season.
No.
I mean, what are we hoping to see?
More episodes.
Yeah, right.
Well, that kind of mystery, like you were saying, we thought there was a mystery with the dimensional stuff.
Yeah.
They got 5 episodes to do that, which they can do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They can tell a good story.
I've been rewatching Lower Decks lately. Now to Paramount Plus again. And one thing they've not gone back to, they've sort of left dangling, is that William Boimler was recruited by Section 31 about halfway through the show. And he's not reappeared yet.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
That was like season 3, wasn't it? That he just like disappeared and then they never mentioned it like halfway through season 3.
It was a story point that he had died, and then the very end, he there he is, and Section 31's got him. So we still have the potential of evil William Boimler from Section 31 turning up.
Maybe that's why current Boimler is growing his beard, so evil Boimler will not have a beard, so it'll be the opposite.
Oh, there you go.
What a good idea.
Yeah, I like that. We also, this has been kind of an annual thing, but so far this year, we haven't had any appearances. Well, I shouldn't say that, but we haven't had prominent appearances by Peanut Hamper, Agamus, or Badgie. Now, I don't know if y'all noticed this, but last week, I think it was last week when they're working on the shuttle.
Yeah.
And Goodgie was there.
It was 2 weeks ago. And Goodgie was there. I thought that was cute. But he was just like in the background. He wasn't a focal point. Right. So we haven't had, and I'll be honest with you, I am fine if we don't get a Badgie episode or a Peanut Hamper episode this year.
But I feel like Badgie went out
Yes.
on a high. So if they leave
Yes.
Badgie be, I'm happy with
Yes.
the way it ended.
Me
Yes.
too.
Unless it's some sort of big like cosmic thing at the end where Badgie and the koala are there, you know.
The koala.
There was a koala in the arcade. There was a koala arcade game. tucked in
Oh,
the
I didn't
background.
see that.
You see it behind Ransom at one point.
Oh, fun.
I would also
Okay.
like Crisis Point 3. You got to complete the trilogy.
We have to.
You know, right?
You have to.
That's, it's asking for it.
Absolutely.
They got a lot of
got
ground
to
to cover
be
in 5 episodes.
I'm telling you. Well, they got to do that like before the finale. So has to.
Yeah. Well,
I do know that the creators behind Lower Decks earlier in the year had said they wanted to have a gigantic final episode that did a lot. They had suggested it might be all of 8 minutes longer than a regular episode. So I don't know, because I guess the question is, will they leave them there? Will people get promotions? Will Mariner finally get on the command track? There's a lot of things. Will Ransom get a command of his own? There's all kinds of things. I don't know if they can wrap it all up or if that seems like too much.
Yeah.
But I'd like to see them going somewhere. I'd like to see them not still be just the same crew when the show signs off. I'd like to see them getting other assignments and getting promotions and stuff. They've earned it.
Yeah. And I'll say again that I really want them to do a spoof of All Good Things where we see them in the future. old Boimler and old Mariner.
Yes.
That would work.
Yeah.
Yes. We really haven't seen pretty much anything this season of like Shax and Dr. Ta'ada.
Yeah.
I mean, you see them in scenes, but they've not been involved in stories really.
Right.
And I've been kind of missing them. I mean, we have gotten, not as much as I would like, but we have gotten some Talin scenes, and that kind of takes that space for me. But I don't know. I feel like they're kind of missed.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Well, if anyone watching or listening has comments about what they would like to see on Lower Decks, or if you have a question of the week that we can address on the show, we love doing questions of the week. It's just a random Star Trek question, and we will answer it. It can be trivia related, or it can just be opinions on things. You can call us at 307-387-1701. That's 307-387-1701. You want to do the jingle, Veronica?
307-387-1701. Did I say it right?
You did, but you need to work on that.
All the numbers are in the right order and
I
everything.
couldn't remember. As I was saying the numbers, I was like, I don't know if these are in the right order. Oh no.
Yep. And if you call that, a cute little voicemail from Veronica will pick up, and you can leave a voicemail, and we may play it on the show. So
yes,
we would love to do that. But also you can find us every week. We'll be back live next Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, talking about the latest Lower Deck episode and a Legacy Star Trek topic along with it. You can find us right here on YouTube or on your favorite podcast platform.
Right on.
And Keith, where can people find more of you?
You can still find me on X, and you can also find me on Facebook, primarily the ESO Network Facebook groups.
And how about you, Alan? I almost said Keith again.
Keith can answer a second time. That's fine. CosmicCreative.com. KOZMIC creative.com.
How about us, Veronica?
Feltnerdy.com.
That's right. And you can also follow us for our adult content at Felt Nerdy and Dirty. That's across social media. And I've just gone through and created Blue Sky accounts for everything, because that seems to be what everybody's doing. So
right.
Fear of missing out. I'm coming too. So you can follow me or Felt Nerdy and Dirty on Blue Sky now. And there's 0 content as of this recording, but that will hopefully change in the future. I literally just did it. That's what I was doing when we were logging on. And where else can people find us?
Monkeying Around, a podcast about the monkeys.
That's right. And our next 2 episodes coming up. Our next one, we'll be talking about, we got together with some friends, and we watched 33 1/3 Revolutions per Monkey, the Notorious Monkeys television special that was meant to be the first of 3 and ended up being the last.
The last.
Wow.
Yes. We had fun watching that, and then we also watched Daydream Believers, the Monkeys biopic from 2000 that is not terribly historically accurate. But that'll be our next 2 episodes on Monkeying Around. So you can find that at Monkeying Around Podcast on any podcast platform or at monkeyingaround.com. And Veronica, do you have a closing for us this week?
I had something and it's gone from my brain now.
Did you?
I did.
Oh no. We'll wait.
It was something about the little Jello shots that Mariner was like, "No, don't eat the Jello shots." Don't eat the Jello shots.
Well, that's good.
Okay.
That'll
We'll
work.
take that.
Don't eat the jumbo
All right.
shots.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. See y'all next Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern.
Bye.